Our national economy is on the brink of recession. As first quarter economic reports are released, the total output in the United States fell 4.8%, the highest drop since the Great Recession. Citizens from states across the nation have had enough of stay-at-home orders and are ready to get our country and our people back to work. What does the future hold? And how are the liberals attempting to dismantle our nation? I've got all this covered and more today on the Closet Conservative Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Wright. Let's get started. Our nation is hurting. With unemployment claims continuing to rise, some estimates project our national unemployment rate to be at 23% or higher. Since the 14th of March, near 30 million Americans have filed for unemployment benefits, crashing systems and delaying payments to millions in need. California was the first state to issue a stay-at-home order and has seen the most significant number of job losses. In a state with an estimated labor force of 19.5 million, over 3.3 million Californians have filed unemployment applications since March 14. But the torrent of claims is coming from everywhere. 46 states and territories have seen more than 1 in 10 eligible workers file for the claims in the last month. Hawaii, Kentucky, Michigan, and Rhode Island have seen the most significant percentage of cuts, with around 1 in 5 workers in each of those states losing their jobs. Small businesses across the country have laid off their employees and are just days or weeks away from permanent closure. For those who were so lucky to receive financial protection from the Paycheck Protection Program, some relief is in sight. However, with speculation that this virus may return in the fall, many question, when will our country get back to normal? COVID-19 has drawn battle lines within our country. Our nation is at war with itself. Many anxious and worried citizens have had enough of government mandates and restrictions and vowed to return to work and activities in defiance of state orders. With a showdown in states across America, what's next? How far are citizens willing to go to preserve their liberties? How now is the government prepared to go to enforce policy in the name of protection? By now, we are all aware of the spike in demand for household and food items as a result of COVID. It all started with toilet paper, with Americans running and hoarding their Charmin, with toiletry supplies stabilizing, food essentials, beef, chicken, and other meats are now in danger of running low or out across the nation. On Tuesday, Trump signed the Defense Production Act to classify meat processing as critical infrastructure to try to prevent a shortage of chicken, pork, and other meat on supermarket shelves. You know what? And unions fired back, saying the White House was jeopardizing lives and prioritizing cold cuts over workers' health. Trump is not alone in recognizing the potential strain in our national food supply. Tyson Foods Incorporated, one of the world's largest food companies, ran a full-page advertisement in the New York Times and other newspapers on Sunday warning the food supply chain is breaking. Despite union pushback, a senior White House official said the administration was trying to prevent a situation in which a vast majority of the nation's meat processing plants might have temporarily closed operations, reducing the availability of meat in supermarkets by as much as 80%. If you thought not having enough toilet paper was terrible, not having food, not having chicken, beef, etc., will be absolutely catastrophic to homes, not to mention businesses such as grocery stores and restaurants. I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about a report that was published by USA Today on Tuesday of this week. According to a new Suffolk poll, 50% of Americans say the government should do more, with 40% say it is trying to do too much. Over the last 30 years, the only time support for a bigger government was close to the current level that it is right now was in the immediate aftermath of the September the 11th terrorist attack, when more activism was backed by 50% to 41%. I want to break this down a little bit. And according to this poll, 50% of the nation believes that our government should be doing more. I would submit that many in our country feel that our government is doing too much. After all, it is the government, local and state, that is denying and forbidding our businesses and communities from opening up. Not in all locations, but in a lot of them. It is those in government that are costing people jobs and livelihoods. The U.S. federal government has signed off on roughly $3.7 trillion in coronavirus-related economic stimulus. This money is needed relief that experts say is necessary for the short term, but will exacerbate debt burdens in the years ahead. America's debt is expected to eclipse the magnitude of its economy by the end of this year. Folks, our nation cannot continue to spend our way out of this pandemic. And I'm very well aware of the infection and death rate of COVID-19. I get it. But I want to share my thoughts today. Our nation was founded on the principle of individual liberties. There are some in our country that believe that Trump should have federally mandated the closure of our country. Folks, I'm here to tell you that is not the role of our government. Our government has strayed way off the reservation in terms of its role in our everyday lives. Many states have decided to go against the CDC guidelines of decreasing infection rates before reopening businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, as a nation, we have no other choice but to move forward in this direction. Why? To date, no state that has opted to reopen has come even remotely close to the federally recommended 14 consecutive days of declining COVID cases. As a nation, if we wait for 14 straight days of decline, we may never reach this goal. Or such a time frame may indeed put us back into the fall of this year, where speculation circles we may again be dealing with COVID-19. I want to speak to another illustration of our government and their lack of oversight. By now, we're all aware of businesses such as Ruth Chris and Shake Shack and others receiving federal dollars in stimulus money, despite having financial resources to weather the corona storm. Now, ESPN reported on Monday the LA Lakers received $4.6 million in bailout funds from the federal government as part of the $349 billion Paycheck Protection Program. You know, the Lakers are one of the most valuable and profitable sports franchises on the planet. You know, Forbes estimated last year that the team earned $147 million in 2018 and would fetch about $3.7 billion if they were to sell. By standard, the Lakers met part of the funding criteria for the SBA loan. However, the Lakers operation has fewer than 500 employees, which qualify that as a small business under the government's aid guidelines. But the Lakers hardly seem as immediately vulnerable or without access to any other financial resources as, say, your corner grocer, baker, barber, or dry cleaner service. The Lakers undoubtedly were aware of a wave of recent disclosures about unlikely companies receiving PPP funds and told ESPN that it returned the $4.6 million. But you know, folks, that isn't what needs debating. If investigations about businesses funded by the PPP had not taken place, how many of these organizations would have returned the money? I'm here to tell you, not a one of them. While many in America are mad about these companies receiving funding, and heck, I'm one of them, I'm here to tell you we cannot hold these companies responsible without first addressing the issue and how these businesses were considered eligible to begin with. If you want to be mad at anyone or anything, again, blame the government. And for the 50% of Americans who believe that government should be doing more, that type of mentality is ludicrous, and it gives you your just desserts. The government is completely out of touch with reality. Too much wealthy ice cream eating, if you ask me. And Trump has given it his best, a valiant effort against the dismal, pandering daydreamers of the DNC who believe that everyone should get a trophy. And I'm here to tell you that is absolute nonsense. As Americans, we are responsible for our actions. We blaze our path of success. We do not and should not depend on government to bail us out of this mess. And in saying such, since we are responsible, we should desire the ability to do what is best for our families and us. No one knows our needs better than ourselves. Accountability requires action, folks. And for those who want to wait out on the sidelines and like sheep, wait for someone or something to lead us into a direction, knock yourself out. For me and the millions of Americans who are ready to get our country out of the clutches of COVID-19, let's get back to making America great again. As we wrap up today, I want to tell you, if you haven't already, please check out the other shows available for download on the Liberty Loft. The Jared Dyson Show is setting some records in new podcast publication. Also, I'm happy to announce the launching of my new podcast, The Vegetius View, whereby I'm tackling news from the firearm and ammo industry, and we'll be doing on-site promotions and interviews with industry experts. If you haven't checked either of them out, hop on over, download and subscribe. You'll be glad you did. I want to thank you all again for tuning in to today's episode. Whatever you do, do well. But most importantly, be American. This is Eric Wright, and this has been the Closet Conservative Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast. Please remember to give a 5-star review and share our podcast with your friends. The Closet Conservative Podcast is a production of the Liberty Loft. Copyright The Liberty Loft 2020. You can find more shows and information on our website, www.thelibertyloft.com, or any of our social media channels.